shared experience. John, let me bring you in and see if you could get your view on a question that's come in from the floor. The value metrics of our economic systems are growth and accumulation. This needs to be examined and challenged at every step of the business creation process, because if we don't alter the conceptions of value that drive our economic systems, we're not building systems of reciprocity. So how do we redefine our definition of value to reflect the virtues of local communities? And how can we rethink systems to support this? Do you think you've already rethought systems in some way?
Yeah, I think so in some way. I think one of the values-driven perspectives that's important to touch on is that relational aspect. I think Liz mentioned, building trust. And where does that come from? Where I'm from, I'm Cree Métis, and so Cree, Nêhinaw is a language group in Canada, and so there's a concept called mino-pimatisiwin, which is how do we live a good life, and it's how we define that is not just in simple terms, not just what my bank statement looks like, what my assets look like. It's how do I live in relation to everything around me, and that's the world around me, and that's the people around me. And so a lot more has to be done and has been done in understanding that value. And so a lot of the language I'm hearing, and it was great conversations last night I was hearing about what is the economic impact, what is the socio-economic impact, positive and negative, and really understanding those things, but understanding those things from the Indigenous community, because those impact measures are not necessarily lining up very well with well-being index and traditional socioeconomic or Western-based socioeconomic indicators. And so working with community to understand what matters to them. Another thing I heard yesterday was intergenerational healing. How do we measure that? In Canada, we have that relationship where policy was about assimilation, was about destroying the Indian. And so now, as we walk through and move through and devolve those relationships and understand how do we build good relationships with Indigenous communities and people, and how do we do it from a value-centered perspective so that we can lift those communities out of abject poverty and understand what drives those communities to bring true partnership. And all that means that we have to challenge our idea of value. Project development, is still incredibly important and always will be, what's the financial risk of this project? What's the financial reward? And then communities are really tired of bearing the environmental risk. Local communities are tired of bearing the environmental risk without realizing an equitable position on the financial reward. And so how do we understand what's equitable, what's right for those communities, understand the impact, take those measures past some of our traditional, and environmental, but understand things like ESG, dive deeper into those social impacts of those communities that matter, so that we can tie development, operations, progress to how we're making the lives of some of these communities better. And so that's where that value piece really organizes around.
Thank you. I think Liz wanted to make a point.